Indeed a pleasure for us to bring in our next guest. Brought to you by Ski Cellar Snowboard, skicellarsnowboard.com. 76 years in Calgary. 2 locations open right now. McLeod Trail by Chinook Center, Bow Ridge Road Northwest. And again, it's the same. Where do you want to buy your equipment? Where do you want to buy your stuff? You want to buy your stuff from people who use it, people who are out there, people who are snowboarding and skiing. You want people who have experience selling you the products. And that's exactly what you get at Ski Cellar Snowboard, skicellarsnowboard.com. A pleasure for us to welcome the aforementioned Sven Baertschi from his home in the Pacific Northwest. Sven, how are you today?
Good. Busy with the kids.
Yeah. Is that
Daddy's home now? So he's busy.
I was going to say full-time dad, right?
Loving it.
Are you?
It's been amazing. A little different. Don't have to get up and go to work right away. I can get up, feed them breakfast, get them ready to go and for the day. And it's been a pleasure, really.
When is the last time you weren't attending a major camp?
That was so obviously like the camp that I had was back in September, actually August or late August. Pro Camp Switzerland, Bern, and that was it. I got hurt in February, and that's kind of been it. Ever since then, it's definitely a different feel.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get to that. You get to September, you get to August, and you get that feel like you have to get ready for a camp, but then you don't. And so it's been different. Took a couple of weeks to kind of get over that fact that you don't have to do that anymore, and then you just kind of move on and do all the stuff you kind of miss out on.
Was stepping away, was retiring a difficult decision for you to make?
I think it's been a build-up.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much retired 2 hours before I had to fly to back to Bern.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, of course, it is difficult. It's a weird situation. I think the way I kind of looked at it was, a certain part of my brain just kind of turned off, and because that's all I ever knew, right?
Yep.
All I ever knew was hockey, and ever since I was 4, and then you get to that point where you're just kind of done,
Mm-hmm.
But the greatest thing is reaching out to different people, reaching out to some of the guys that kind of went through similar situations and kind of talking to them, and they helped me out big time. Some ex-teammates and that kind of guided me through like the next few weeks, and I'm already on to the next chapter, so it kind of happened quick. So I'm super excited what's next, and but yeah, it's different. You're not a player anymore. You become something else, really.
Do you leave the game healthy?
I think so. Well, there's quite some. There was some injuries I was going through that kind of carried on throughout my career, and it took a lot of maintenance to take care of that stuff, and I don't know if you leave the game healthy most of the time. I think it's just maintaining your body to be able to play, and it just to me, it became a chore for each game. It became a lot of maintenance just to get ready for practice. It became a lot of maintenance to just be ready for a game, and that's why I came to that decision. And right now, I just kind of feel my body slowly like recovering from all that, from all these injuries, and So I think that's the biggest thing. I don't know, like, you know, you play the game for that long. I think, you know, you're gonna have your stuff. You know, you're gonna have your injuries and stuff that can carry on for a long time. But right now, it's just kind of happy with the way I feel, and I feel like my body's recovering pretty good.
Do you still love the game?
Love it.
Good.
Never gonna leave the game. I don't think it's too like engraved in me, and yeah, I'm already on to the next chapter. You know, like I'm already been working with the Winterhawks and kind of doing some stuff there. Mike Johnson, unbelievable coach. He kind of took me in already working with them, just working on little details, working on little skill stuff and all that stuff. And so it's been, you know, not going to, as a player, I'm okay to leave the game. But as we move forward, I think I want to be more of a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of my thing right now, is what I'm kind of being mentored by one of the, you know, greatest coaches in WHL. So I'm lucky.
Coaching or skill development? I mean, there's so many opportunities now. Which is what interests you as a teacher?
I'm not sure. You know, like, well, you got to start somewhere. Like, you got to start at. I'm lucky enough. Mike gave me a call and brought me in right away, and it's been my first week. So I'm just getting to know some of the players. I'm getting to know what's happening out there on the ice. A lot of similarity. Like, he hasn't really changed his way.
Mm-hmm.
So like, a lot of the things we're doing each day is the same. But just having the opportunity to go in and work with him and just kind of being mentored by him and see what coaches do day by day. That's my biggest priority right now. It's just kind of getting to know what it's like to be in the coach's room, what it's like to be, you know, like studying like all the video and all that stuff. And yeah, so it's just kind of been shadowing him, seeing what he's doing on a daily basis with the young kids, and then stepping in after practice, working with some of the younger kids. And yeah, it's a different angle to the game, and I'm actually enjoying it. But it's also, you know, I'm seeking advice from different people that I used to play with. You know, I called Brock Besser, I called Mike Camilleri that I used to play with, because some of the things they do or used to do, or, you know, that stick out to me, I'm trying to figure out exactly like how they used to play the game. And, you know, Mike was his shot was unbelievable. So like I literally just reached out to him and was like, hey, like, what is it that made your shot that much bigger than that much better than anybody else's?
Yep.
So I'm learning the game from a different angle.
Your experience in the NHL and your experience working with different coaches, how much is that going to impact you? How much does that form the coach that you're about to become? Who are you stealing from, and who are you trying to avoid being?
I think you just kind of pick and choose, right? Like I think there's great lessons, you know, and I think for me, we've talked about this before, and I think one of the things, you know, Bob and I never got along in Calgary.
Yep.
Like it was just one of those things where, or maybe we got along in like a different way, whatever. But one of the biggest things he like taught me was to always stop at the net. And I pretty much made a living stop at the net.
Right.
There's other things that kind of came with the whole thing, and like I don't think he was, you know, he treated me great in a lot of ways and all that stuff. But those are like little things you kind of learn from and kind of help you down the line. And you know, I had Bob, I had Travis, who kind of brought me to Vancouver. it's little stuff you kind of learn along the way. And like, you know, a lot of times I think as a player, it might be tough at the moment to hear some of the stuff, but I think you're also going to learn a lot from it and move on. And that's where I'm at right now, is kind of, you know, really I didn't enjoy having Bob as a coach, but at the same time, I'm like, well, how many goals did I score from that? Because I stopped. So it's an interesting thing. It's, you know, I think coaches, and that's kind of what I'm learning right now, is like, it can be tough love. It can be tough at times for like younger players, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of times it's just trying to help in some way. Obviously, it's got to be in like in a good way, but
right.
It was the same with Travis. You know, Travis kind of, you know, I think Travis was always like a father figure to me, and he kind of took me in, and it was tough love, but it was in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow we ended up together again. We had some great seasons together, and but yeah, it was, you know, he expected a lot. That's kind of what I'm seeing right now with it being in the coach's office is a lot different than the locker room.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of, what I noticed with Mike, you know, I think he, you know, there's a lot of, he's really trying to understand the players and how much can he give that guy, how much can he give that guy, and like how much love does that guy need, and how much toughness does that guy need.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to see that view, you know, from a coach's side. So it's been really interesting for me.
How much, or do you pay attention to the Mike Babcock's situation, or even here, you know, with the controversy that was around the Calgary Flames last year, Bill Peters, the way that it seems like, you know, the accountability to coaching and the way that you can deal with players or should deal with players has changed. And I would say it kind of changed in your time while you were in the NHL. Do you see it that way? Is that your feeling too, that, you know, you can't coach exactly the same way you could 10, 20, 30 years ago?
I don't think he can, like, yeah, I think that's, why would you coach like that? Like, what's the point? You know, like,
Yep.
it doesn't make sense. It's it to me, like, to me personally, but I know nobody, like, it doesn't make sense to coach that way.
Right.
You know, like it just doesn't. I think what you want to do is encourage guys to do the right thing, and, you know, like, I understand the whole toughness and all that stuff, and like, you got to. But yeah, like, seeing some of the stories, seeing some of that stuff, I understand hockey's a rough sport. Hockey's, you know, supposed to be played a certain way and all that, but doesn't make sense. It does. It's not necessary to do some of this stuff. Like, really not. There's different ways you can do it. But like I said again, like, I'm nobody. I'm not Mike Babcock, and, you know, like, it doesn't make sense, you know, especially like for it's a different vibe now, and I can tell, you know, being in the locker room now. But it never made sense before either. You know, like, you know, I played with some of the toughest people. You know, Brian McGrattan, Gillies, absolute machines and beasts, but it never made sense for some of the stuff that was happening around
Right.
locker rooms.
Yeah.
Or behind closed doors and within the game, and it just, yeah, I don't know. Once I saw it, I kind of was like, I was actually surprised, because, obviously, like on the outside, you kind of see like the news and all that, but what's happening behind closed doors is kind of, you don't really hear about it until you do, and then you kind of like, not really smart, I don't think.
Yeah, and the reason for the question is because as somebody's about to embark on a coaching, journey of your own, these are new. It's a new world. Like I think it's becoming a new world, right?
I think so, and I think, well, you look at Cooper in Tampa.
Yep.
He kind of went in, was like, when they won the second cup, he was like, well, I didn't really do that much. I just always encouraged the guys.
Right.
That was his biggest thing. But it is an interest. Like why wouldn't it make sense for guys to be like understand like tough love, and you got to push guys. I understand that part, but there's always going to be that part where each player is different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what I'm learning right now, is where some guys need to be pushed harder. Other guys, like you have to have a feel for each guy. And I think the biggest thing, like working with Mike right now, is learning how to deal with each player and how to get the best out of your team. And I think a lot of times it's got to be some firmness there, but I think there's got to be some love as well, and some guidance and helpfulness, and that's kind of what I'm learning right now. But I've also learned a ton through Bob, which ended up helping me down the road. So I'm trying to kind of brainstorm and kind of get some of the stuff out of each coach that I had, and that's kind of what's happening in my head right now. And
Yeah,
you kind of open up a whole can of worms in my head right now, to be honest.
well, kind of what I'm hoping to do.
Yeah.
Let me come at it from a completely different way, and this is not your issue. This is my issue. I have been. We are lucky in this city. We had Carla McLeod coaching the University of Calgary Dinos, and she also coached Team Chechia, and TSN and the world allowed us to watch her coach, and her methodology and what we saw was incredible. And I just was asking the question, are we ready now for, can we finally just have a woman coach a hockey team, like a men's hockey team? And what we've learned is we're willing to give second chances to guys who've had reputations, but Carla's got to prove that she can coach men. As a player, are you ready? Could you have played for a woman on the bench?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it doesn't really, like, at the end of the day, it's kind of like you want to trust whoever's behind the bench. You want to trust the knowledge, and it doesn't really matter who that person is.
Right.
But when you get into a locker room, you kind of, as a player, you kind of want to have that feel, and you sit there, you want to have that feel of they know exactly what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the biggest thing. And it doesn't, at that point, it doesn't really matter, like, who is standing there, but like there's got to be a trust between coaches and the player, and so whoever can teach you the best and guide you along the best, at that point, like, it really doesn't matter who it is.
Right.
But like you have that sense when you sit there, and let's say before a game or whatever, you have that sense that the person ahead of you that's standing there and like talking to you through a pre-scout or whatever, once you have that feel that, okay, they know what they're talking about, and to guide you in the right direction to get a win, that's the only thing that matters.
Right.
Like nothing else really, nothing else. And I think, I mean, there's so many amazing coaches out there that never have that chance to get onto like the next level or whatever. And it's, it's like, I think too, like there's so many good women out there that play amazing hockey, move on to the next chapter. And I think it's slowly coming.
Yep.
Getting more women involved in hockey, and like, it's got to move forward, I think. And it like at the end of the day, like to me, I think it doesn't really matter who it is that's standing in front of you, as long as there's an authority and knowledge, and then you're gonna learn, and you're gonna become a better player. And yeah.
I mentioned before you got on that last week when we were in Vancouver, I brought in my notebook and I was going back to one of our first conversations at Flames Camp with you. And I want to revisit part of that conversation because I never got to ask you the complete question last week. When I talked to you as an 18-year-old, it was an interesting time because Mark Streit had just been named a captain in the NHL. Nino Niederreiter, who you played with, was making a splash. Swiss hockey was a thing. It was really coming on. You just played in Bern last year. What did you notice when you went home? What did you notice about the game in Switzerland? How had it grown, or did it change?
It's the way I look. Well, obviously you got the big guys, so you add a few feet, and the ice actually becomes a lot bigger each way. Olympic ice. It's really a North American game on the big ice, which is sometimes kind of hard to explain, because I think guys play hard. It's a physical game, but it's hard for defensemen and stuff to kind of keep that to play hard, because guys got a little more room. The team I played on, we had a strong team, a fast team, and we sort of played the North American way for most of the year. But what I've seen is, there's tons of guys over there that are unbelievable hockey players, really skilled hockey players, fast hockey players. A lot of skill. A fun game to play. You obviously, you got a couple more seconds when you're out there. But yeah, for me, I loved it. I enjoyed it. For me, it was always the goal to go back and play at home. And but yeah, it was definitely different. For me personally, I kind of thought it was going to be easier than it was going to be.
Okay.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. Like, really, my goal was to go home and be in front of my family and give them a year of fun and have them at each game. So that was my biggest goal, and we had a good team. Just didn't make it quite all the way to where we wanted to go, but yeah, travel was easy. Like we didn't really have to travel that far, and the central Switzerland, so simple travel. It's good. Got to see most of Switzerland, and then yeah. But it was really for my family.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing. Just grind out a year and be home with the family.
I'm old enough to remember, when Switzerland and Germany seemed to be the team that was always switching, from A pool down to B pool and back, or regulated and all that. What's the expectation for hockey in Switzerland internationally? I mean, is the expectation at the World Championships, at the Olympics, it's to compete now, right? Like, do they feel that way?
I think so. Well, ever since they got the silver,
yeah.
Ever since then, it has become, well, it's it's different. Like you talking Olympics, and then you talking like World Championships.
Yeah,
two different things, right? Like
right. That's true.
A Team Canada, Team USA, whatever. But everybody missing pretty much. But each year, I think it's been. I think a lot of the teams in Europe. You look at Finland, you look at Sweden, you look at Switzerland. It's become really competitive at the top, away from Canada and the US.
Mm-hmm.
In that way. But again, it's different. It's the World Championships. It's not Olympics with a fully stacked team. It's a different story. But those are big events, big moments for Team Switzerland going in each year. And what I've seen, like the past 10 years, the development that's been going on, and like some of the players that, like I said, when I first broke into the league, there was like nobody.
Yeah.
There's no Swiss representation throughout the league, and then all of a sudden, like this, you got. I was talking to Travis Green, who Devils assistant coach now. He told me, he's like, "Oh, we got 4 Swiss guys on our team," and that's kind of what it was like for me when I was in Calgary.
Yeah.
We had Jonas Hill, like we had a full Swiss team, and then Vancouver, we had Yannick Weber, Lucas Biza, and like it's, so that's the coolest part, I think, is that the guys make a step in Switzerland, they play well there in juniors, get drafted, make it over here, and then they kind of spread throughout the league, and that's the biggest thing. So like, I don't know what it is right now, but it's got to be at least 12, 13 guys in the league.
Yeah.
So I'm super proud of that. And
impact guys.
Yeah. Big
right?
time with Timo signed in Jersey, and, you got captain Nico Hischier. That's awesome to see. It all started with Mark Streit, and kind of moved on to Lucas Biza, Nino, and then I kind of broke into the league, and that's awesome to see. And I think that it speaks for Swiss hockey.
222 games, 110 points. Tell me about your time as a Canuck. What did you take away? What did you enjoy about being in Vancouver?
Lots of stuff. I mean, awesome place to live. Really love living there. Team was good. I think we just kind of we were, we had we were developing, and we're just getting going, and we kind of in that rebuild situation, but we're young, we're skilled, and we had a good team. I think there was a lot more possible than we did. But yeah, best part was, living there and enjoying the time there. I think, it's an absolute beautiful city.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had my best years there. I really enjoyed playing there, and great teammates, great line mates, and yeah, I know we missed the playoffs pretty much every year, but still loved it. It was a great place to play. It was fun to play there, and yeah, I wish we would have had more success, but that is what it is. Like they had some success after once I left, but there's a lot more possible, I think.
13th overall, first round pick, 2011. You go to the Calgary Flames. It's funny, when I promoted that you were coming on, immediately we got, I remember the kid and the 18-year-old. And you and I talked about this last week, but I do want to revisit it a little bit. Tell me about coming to Calgary. Tell me about your first pro training camp, what it was like, and what it meant to you to be at an NHL training camp.
Well, I don't really know how to explain that. because it was never supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those weird, I mean, I took a risk coming over to Portland, and I just kind of hoped and guessed and let's see how it goes. Kind of trust my agent, and you'll be fine. It's going to be good.
You didn't speak English when you came over, right?
I did not. Yeah, I did not. So when I went to Portland, I didn't speak English, and I kind of just took a gamble on, how it's going to go like the next few years. And I just kind of trusted people around me, and they encouraged me to go. And, but then, then I found success in Portland, and then I think it kind of turned from a dream into like reality within like the first half year, where all of a sudden, you see yourself on like the mock drafts and all that stuff, and like you expected to go first round, and then you kind of it becomes reality, and then you go to the combine, you get drafted, and all of a sudden you get your first NHL camp, and you kind of it becomes the dream. And then like you sit next to certain people, you practice next to people you never thought you're going to practice with and then play with. And it was definitely an interesting experience, and something I never thought of was going to happen. But then it did, and that great support within the team throughout camp, because it doesn't mean much like being a first round pick, really.
Nope.
There's so much more to it. You're talking to guys like Jerome again, like you're talking to, they established themselves, and then you just kind of come in with like nothing really. And so they kind of guide you along, and like the guys in Calgary back then, they did an awesome job, loved them. They just kind of help you along. And, I was talking about Mike Camilleri, like he used to drive me around and help me out with everything I needed kind of early on when I got there. And that's kind of the environment that Brent back then kind of built. And I loved it, but it was obviously you're nervous. Obviously you're going through all that stuff, but at the same time, you want to come in and show yourself and make a statement, make sure you're showing yourself off. And so, yeah, personally, I loved it. But obviously you got some nerves. You're a young kid. We're playing with men, so but I loved it.
Let's talk about what happened in that first season, which was you qualified to be an emergency recall because of the injury situation in Calgary. And certainly I don't think it was anything that was on your radar, but you ended up playing in 5 games that year.
Yeah, I did. Ended up being a phone call. I think we were in Kamloops, and it was a phone call at like 6 a.m. And I had to go to the rink, and I thought I was traded. And then they were like, well, you got to go. You got to catch a plane. You're going to be playing against Winnipeg. And it was the first time for Winnipeg to be back in Calgary back then.
Yep.
And they, sent me on a plane, and I went there, and I was, of course, nervous. Sat next to Jerome. He kind of calmed me down. Kind of. I was still shaking about the whole game. Went in the first shift, and it was awesome. It was a great experience. Thought I was just going to go in for 1 game. Ended up staying for 5. Scored in my second game in Minnesota, where I got drafted. So that was a great experience.
Yeah, we'll talk about that goal though.
And then I went 2 in a row after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was weird because it was kind of like the dream come true, and then also got sent back right away after because they got some back. So it was kind of like the first kind of memory of playing in the NHL and then going back to like reality, you know.
Yep.
Because I knew then I wasn't like an NHL player. I was, lucky in some ways, and I kind of just went along with the whole thing, and I was playing on just purely adrenaline. And then, I went back and kind of reality kicked back in, and I was back with the Hawks and finished off that year pretty good.
Tell me about that first goal in Minnesota.
It was, I mean, it was one of those things like it was fairly like a simple goal, but like it's one of those things you're always going to remember. And it was a shot from the point. Derek Smith took a wrist shot. I was in front of the net, tipped it, went off the goalie's pads, and then the puck just kind of laid there. And I looked at the puck, and it had the NHL logo on it. And then it all went slow motion. I looked down and had an empty net to shoot at, pretty much. And in my head, I remember it was just like, this is it. And it was like that was like the it moment.
Sure.
Welcome to the league, And like the biggest thing is the excitement from the teammates when you score your first goal. It's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Because they know, like they're right there with you, and then you score, and it's just kind of, it's that moment you wait for like your whole life,
Yep.
So yeah, that was awesome.
How much did that impact the next year? Was it helpful, or was it a hindrance that you had those 5 games?
It's a great question. I think that's something I got to kind of study and look at. Like, like expectations were high. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. And I think, people kind of expected me to come in and be like putting up 30 but unless you're top one in the world, like you're not going to do that when you come in at 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of, there's some guys that can do it. I'm here. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Perfect. No, it's no problem.
Gotcha.
I'll just reset the question. And that was, did the 5 games in your first year impact you the next year in a good or a bad way?
I don't know. I probably wouldn't have an answer for that. I think, obviously like expectations and stuff were high when I came back, and, probably looking back was not great for me to score those goals. Because obviously you come in afterwards and, like you're supposed to be the go-to guy.
Yeah.
Year after, and it never kind of worked out that way for me. But also there's so many different things that changed and happened within like the organization, and like
Absolutely
what was going to be next, and
yep.
And so I don't know, like it's one of those things where looking back, I look back at it, and it was not great, not a good, even though I loved it,
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things like I loved and enjoyed, but setting me up, like I kind of set myself up for, a 30, 40 goal a year, because that's kind of the expectations people have, right?
Yep.
Like it's,
Yep.
even though like I said before, like at that point, I was not like an NHL player. I didn't know how to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of came along, and the biggest thing was, Brent Sutter, before the first game, pretty much just telling me like, hey, just go have fun.
Right.
But there's so much more to the game where, like, I wasn't playing well defensively. I wasn't doing like some of the details guys are doing each game. I just was lucky enough to get the puck on my stick a few times and score.
Yeah.
But then that's kind of like the expectation. But then, you come to camp the next year, and there's so much more to the game. So I don't know if it was a good thing or bad. Like I really don't have an answer for that right now for you. But tell you what, loved it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I get that part. Let me run another theory by you. I'm not saying I'm culpable, but I'm wondering about my peer group, because for a long time there, the Flames just never had great draft picks and never had impact young players, and it seemed like everybody else had impact players. And there was you, Michael Backlund, it just seemed like we were almost wishing and hoping to cover young players having success like other teams were having. Did you feel that there was a lot of pressure coming back in that second season from the media and the fans to kind of be like other young players were at other places in the league, which is somewhat unfair because they're first overall picks and stuff, right?
Yeah, I was interested. Like, you get viewed a little different just because you get the tag on your back and you're a first round pick.
Yep.
Right. So in some ways, of course, you get a little bit more opportunity. And at the time I broke in with the Flames, it was kind of like there was a turnaround happening there. And I think like I loved it. And I think, some of the players that came in, they brought some great veteran guys in to help us out in many ways. But, me and Bax, like we've spent a lot of time together, and we kind of we're in the same boat in a lot of ways. Yeah, but you also can sense the feel of, okay, like this team is moving in like the right direction, I think. And yeah, so like me and him, TJ Brody was there. There was definitely like a big difference between like rookies or younger players and then veteran guys.
Yeah.
But we were trending in like the right direction back then, going into like the second year. And yeah, I thought we had a great team. All played together well. I think the room was great, and yeah, I thought we had some decent success. But I think that year, my second year, I don't think we made the playoffs. Trying to think back.
No, not in not in 13-14.
Yeah, but it was definitely different going in. Playing with and I think Sean Monty was drafted that year, and playing with him and Hoodler, I thought I had some good success with them. And I think playing with Sean, I think he was one of the funnest players I played with, really.
What made him fun?
Well, the guy can barely skate, but he can shoot.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
No, it was fun though. We had a great group there.
Sure.
Could have more success, I think. Yeah, I think that year I was going through some injuries and stuff as well. And but yeah, it was interesting because it kind of going into Calgary and we're kind of in that regroup situation there. And then also once I got traded to Calgary, Vancouver, it's the same thing kind of there. Like they kind of they were in the swing of things, kind of getting new players in, and so I never really experienced like the full winning mentality really in some ways, just trying to make it to the playoffs, both with Calgary and Vancouver.
I'll skip ahead and come back for a second. Just on that note, you did get in a game with Vegas. You were in their system. Did you notice a difference around in that regard? Because that's an organization that just won that right from day one was in a Stanley Cup final. Was it a different experience in that organization?
Interesting. That's actually a hard question. There was some sense of they just know they're great.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I noticed in Vegas in general, like not just the Knights, but also the, Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in both ways, it's like there's a certain standard there where it's almost based, it's because they made it to the cup right away. It was like the mentality of, okay, we're going to win this thing next 4 years, 5 years, whatever.
Yep.
And a certain standard, a certain I don't know, it just kind of felt right, like
Mm-hmm.
the year before they won the cup, when I played one game, there's no, you can sense it like in the room. There's no doubt. Either we're going to win this year or next year.
Right. And an inevitability. They just were destined.
There was a certain vibe there.
Yep.
And that's all I can really say. Like it just felt, and not like as soon as they went into the season this year, when I was in Switzerland, I was like, gosh, like they're just too good.
Yeah.
And they know they're good.
Yeah.
And each game was, if they lost, didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because they knew they were good. Going into the next game, they're going to win. And that's kind of what it felt like. When I watched the games in the final, Florida, like didn't have a chance.
No.
I mean, game, was it game 6 or game 5? That's kind of like the mentality I always had in Vegas. And that's kind of what I saw there. And yeah, interesting. Like they just knew they were going to win. They knew they had a good team, but it just, you felt it in the room,
Double back to the Calgary. Just one last one on Calgary. And I've always wanted to ask you this, and I think you've established, the relationship with Bob Hartley. I don't have a role in this other than I was really deeply disappointed this happened. The trade to Vancouver, was that disappointing for you, or was that a new lease on life for you?
No, I was happy. I was really happy with that. And I think, like I was talking before about like tough love and all that. Like I understand that being part of hockey, and like you got to be rough, or not rough, but tough for your players and all that. But at the end of the day, like it was like too much for me to handle at that time. And it was, like I said before, though, there's many things I learned from him, but I also got, kind of beaten up in a lot of ways mentally by him. And it's one of those things I kind of look back and like I learned a lot from him, but he was also not, I don't think he had a good feel for what I was like as a player.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm always looking back at that time in Calgary, like where it was probably too much for me to handle.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like I don't know, like it's one of those weird things where so much I learned from him, but God, like he beat me up pretty good, like mentally, and I had a rough time with it. In the long run, like, is that going to help me or not? It's kind of like trying to figure that out. It's going to take a while, like
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely some lessons in there, some good stuff. But I mean, guys would kind of look at me at times, be like, how much can he handle? How much more can he go through with him? Because I think, like I'm a Swiss person. I'm a sensitive guy. I'm not that rough and tough. That's who I am. And I think he just kind of had that idea where he was going to teach me some lessons and like let me know. But then also he taught me like some of the best stuff that I've learned. And, he's had success everywhere he's went. But also it was tough. There was there was a lot of tears, a lot of emotions, a lot of tough nights, no sleep. Yeah. But really, there's some good, some bad, some ugly. And that's kind of the way I kind of look back at it. Yeah. But we didn't have that many great conversations, really.
Yeah. Let's end on something more positive, and that's a connection that you and I share through Heroes Hockey. Tell me about Kevin Hodgson and meeting Kevin for the first time. How did that all happen?
Well, I went to rookie camp in July. My first camp in the NHL. And the funny part was, so I went to camp and it was one of those things because I was training in Switzerland. There's no ice throughout the summer, right? So I go to camp and so go on the first practice and all these guys are flying around me and I'm supposed to be like the first round pick, right? So I'm supposed to be like the best player out there, kind of. And well, I'm not doing that well. Barely skate. Didn't skate all summer. And so like in my head, I'm like, well, I gotta stay out. I gotta skate. I gotta do some work afterwards and make sure I'm ready for the next day. Craig Conroy, he was like, first practice, he was like, what's going on with you? And I told him, I was like, well, I haven't skated. He's like, the hell you mean you haven't skated? I'm like, there's no ice in Switzerland, like in the summer. And so like I made the decision, I'm like, I'm just gonna stay out in the ice and skate and do my own stuff and like after practice or whatever. So I get out and Zamboni driver is kind of at the door like, hey, like, can you pull this guy off? And I see Kev over there and he's just kind of at the bench, like kind of gave me that, can you get off? And yeah, I went on for like half an hour, 45 minutes just by myself, and they didn't pull me off. They didn't do anything. I think Craig was talking to the Samboni drivers, like, just let him skate. Like, he hasn't, like, so let him know. And Kevin's just on the bench, just like, hey, like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, we got to get this guy off. We got to get him off. And yeah. So it's just every day I would just stay out there because I have to catch up on some of the skating stuff and skill stuff that I wasn't able to do in Switzerland because obviously didn't have ice. So every day, for a week and a half, Kev was standing at the bench and let me know, it's like, time to get off, time to get off, time to get off. And I would just stay and stay and stay. And that's kind of how we started our relationship. And I think I've always had great relationships with people that work for the team, people that work, do the long hours. And I know how hard it is for training camp and all that stuff. So like always make sure that I would chat with him, hang out with him, have a good conversation with him. And it's one of those things, like you meet each other twice in life. And he's been a great inspiration for me. And I was a pain in the butt for him at the beginning, but now we're great friends and we're helping out each other right now. So it's great.
You are indeed. Listen, last week it was so awesome to see you and your family. So awesome to talk to you again today. Thank you for doing this. I've always been your biggest fan. I think you're a great human being and a hell of a hockey player. So good luck. I hope we can stay in touch. I'm fascinated to see where the coaching takes you. And my other piece of advice is continue to hit them long and straight down the fairway.
I'm going in about an hour.
Are you? Okay. I'm not surprised. Sven, thanks for doing this, pal.
No, thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. And thanks for everything you do. And always happy to chat with you. So whatever you need, I got you.
Right.
Got you. Okay.
Love you too, brother.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.